The arena was alive with thunderous noise as thousands of alien spectators gathered to witness another spectacle, their eyes fixed on the massive gates where the galaxy's most feared creature was about to appear. The Vorak beast, a predator bred only for killing, had never lost a fight. Its jagged scales and bone-crushing jaws had ended countless challengers, leaving the sand stained with stories of failure. When the announcement came that a new opponent was entering, the crowd leaned forward, expecting some towering warrior or armored hunter. Instead, what walked out was a human, unarmored, without alien weapons, only a calm expression on his face, as if he were stepping into a practice match rather than certain death. Confusion rippled through the audience, followed by bursts of laughter, because in their eyes, humans were fragile creatures of flesh, too soft to even survive a single strike from the Vorak. Yet the man's posture was steady, his gaze sharp, and he carried himself with an ease that unsettled those who paid closer attention. As the heavy chains unlocked and the Vorak roared into the open, the laughter faded just a little because the human didn't flinch, didn't run. He simply smiled, and that small detail planted the first seed of unease. The moment the chains fell, the Vorak exploded forward like a living storm, its roar shaking the walls of the arena as claws raked across the sand and jaws snapped with the promise of death. But the human did not charge, did not even raise his hands. He simply shifted his weight, moving just enough to let the beast's massive strike slam into empty air, the ground splitting where the claws landed. Gasps rippled through the crowd, but before they could recover, the Vorak lunged again, faster this time, aiming to crush its prey beneath its armored bulk, and yet once more the human slipped aside as if he had known exactly where the attack would land. To the aliens watching, it looked like luck, but as the seconds passed, luck became impossible to believe. Each time the predator lunged, the man's steps carried him just out of reach, his movements smooth and controlled, not frantic like prey, but calm like someone who had already solved the fight in his mind. He did not strike back, did not waste energy, and most unsettling of all, he kept his hands behind his back, as though this was not combat at all but a kind of game. The Vorak grew angrier, its roars echoing with frustration, its powerful body hurling sand into the air as it attacked again and again. But the human only gave small sidesteps, slight turns, little shifts that made the predator look clumsy and wild. The laughter that had filled the arena earlier had already died out, replaced by silence as the crowd began to see something they did not want to believe. The greatest predator in the galaxy was being made to look slow and foolish, while the human looked almost amused. The Vorak's strength was terrifying, its muscles coiled with power as it swung its claws and snapped its jaws. But as the fight dragged on, something became clear to everyone watching. The human was not only surviving, he was controlling the entire rhythm of the battle. Each time the beast lunged, the man gave a sharp clap or a sudden whistle, small sounds that made the predator hesitate for a fraction of a second, enough for him to slide past and redirect its momentum. When the Vorak tried to circle, the human shifted just one step, forcing it to turn wide and stumble, as though he were guiding its path with invisible strings. The audience leaned forward, their eyes wide as they realized this was no accident, no blind survival. The human was reading the predator, pulling it into traps of its own fury. Minutes stretched on, the Vorak's roars growing hoarse, its movements losing the crisp edge of a hunter and turning into reckless thrashing, while the man stood steady, calm, and frighteningly patient. He still had not thrown a single punch, yet the beast was already tiring, its sides heaving, blood seeping from scratches it had earned by crashing into its own strength. Aliens who once mocked the human now whispered in uneasy tones, because they understood something terrifying. The man was not fighting for his life. He was playing, as though the galaxy's apex predator was nothing more than a puzzle to be solved. Every glance, every step, every gesture carried the same unshakable confidence, and the crowd began to see what none of them wanted to admit. The human was not prey pretending to be brave. He was a predator who had simply chosen to toy with his opponent before ending the game. The Vorak was no longer the unstoppable force it had been at the start. Its scales were chipped from its own collisions, its claws left deep trenches in the arena floor, and its roars had turned ragged with exhaustion. The crowd, once deafening, had fallen into a tense silence, every pair of alien eyes fixed on the strange human who still stood unshaken. He had not thrown a single true strike, yet he had shaped the entire fight, and now, as the predator staggered, he finally changed his stance. The man unclasped his hands from behind his back and slowly raised one, curling his fingers as if beckoning the beast to come. The gesture was simple, almost mocking, and it struck deeper than any blade because it carried pure confidence, the kind only hunters showed when the kill was already decided. The Vorak, furious and desperate, roared one last time and launched forward with all the strength it had left, its body a blur of muscle and rage. But the human was faster, his movement sharp and precise. He slid beneath the monster's leap, caught one of its limbs in mid-motion, and twisted with brutal efficiency. A sharp crack echoed across the arena, a sound so sharp that many in the stands flinched, and the Vorak crashed onto the ground screaming in pain. The human did not pause. His body flowed like water, stepping around the predator as if he had practiced every move 1,000 times, striking joints, redirecting its weight, and turning its own bulk against it. By the time the beast tried to rise again, one leg dragged uselessly, and its balance was shattered. The man stepped closer, his hand resting briefly on the predator's snout, a gesture that looked almost respectful but was filled with dominance, as if saying, "You are finished." Then, without looking back, he walked away, leaving the beast alive but broken, its mighty form crumpled into the sand. The crowd remained frozen, the silence so heavy it pressed on every chest, because they knew what they had just seen was not luck, not chance, but control so absolute it changed everything they believed about strength. The turning point had come not for the fight, but for their understanding of humanity. The Vorak lay defeated, its once thunderous roars reduced to weak growls as its massive body trembled in the sand, while the human walked calmly toward the arena gates with the same steady steps he had shown since the beginning. Not once had he needed weapons, not once had he relied on overwhelming force, yet he had broken the galaxy's apex predator piece by piece until it could no longer stand. The crowd that had laughed at his entrance now sat in absolute silence, their disbelief turning into something heavier fear. They had always thought of humans as fragile creatures, soft-skinned and vulnerable, yet what they had seen was a lesson written in front of their eyes. The man had shown patience where others showed panic, control where others showed desperation, and a kind of confidence that belonged only to those who understood the mind of predators better than anyone else. It was not brute strength that made him terrifying, but the way he had turned the most dangerous beast into a toy, forcing it to follow his pace until the fight was no longer a battle but a demonstration. Among the alien leaders, watching from the higher balconies, unease spread like a shadow, for they realized this was only one man, a single representative of his kind. If one human could do this for sport, then what could an entire world of them do if threatened? The arena had meant to humiliate a human and entertain the galaxy, but instead, it delivered a warning none would forget. Humanity had not come to prove itself equal. It had come to remind every species watching that Earth never raised prey, it raised predators, who wore calm faces and quiet smiles.